it's Lisa, and welcome to a new weekly reading vlog. We have week 2 of the month of April of the magical readathon, and I'm excited to do some reading this week. I'm making some good progress in my TBR for the magical readathon. My goal is kind of to read one book a week because there are 4 weeks in the month and I have 4 books that I have to read. So that just seems like the best way to keep track of what I'm reading and pace myself with my TBR and just make sure I'm getting through everything. Plus there's other things I want to read this month. So I just think that makes the most sense. And last week 1 of the readathon, I did manage to complete 1 prompt. So far I think we're on the right track. I've started my 2nd read, so I think we're gonna make some good progress this week. I am currently reading The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. I don't know why I'm holding up my Kindle because the cover's not here. You can't see what I'm holding up. So I'm reading this for the inscription class, and the prompt for this one was to write down 3 book titles, and then you just pick one at random, and then that's how you end up with the book you read for this prompt. So that's what I did in my TBR video, and so that's what I'm gonna be reading. I'm not very far into it. I'm only 10% of the way through, but I'm hoping that I can finish it this week. Like I said, I do want to read a book a week this month, so for the magical readathon, and so that would mean that I had to finish this week. But we'll see. I think this is definitely the longest book on my TBR, and I have some other shorter books left on my TBR, so if this one takes me a little bit longer than a week, I think it'll be okay. But I am still going to try and do a lot of reading this week just because I know next week we have the Tortured Poets department coming out on Friday, and I just feel like once that album's out, the rest of this readathon, I might not be reading very much, so I'm I'm going to try and get in as much reading as possible before Taylor Swift takes over. The amount of times that Taylor Swift tries to hijack the readathons that I participate in and disrupt my reading, it happens every readathon that I participate in. How does she always know? But obviously I'm so excited about that, and we will be obviously vlogging that week and that release, so you will be seeing the reactions, the chats about it. I'm so excited. It's going to emotionally destroy me, but I'm ready for it. But yeah, The Serpent and the Wings of Night, 10% of the way through. Still don't know too much about what is going to be going on. What I really know is that we have our main character, Aurea, I believe is how you say her name, and she is a human that's been raised by vampires. I don't exactly know or really remember how the world is kind of set up. There's different houses in this world and in these lands of vampires, and the king or lord or whoever he is of one of the houses is the one that takes her in. So she kind of has protection in that way, but she still is a human living amongst vampires, so she's still very vulnerable. And so she decides to enter and compete in this competition amongst other vampires because if you win, you essentially get granted a wish, and that's how she's going to ensure her protection. But this competition's life or death. You either win or you die. That's pretty much how it goes. So where I'm at right now, I think the competition is about to start. So I'm very intrigued. I love a competition element in a book, so I think it's going to be really fun. And this is also a fantasy romance, so I know once the romance comes in, that's probably going to take up a big amount of the page time in this book, but I'm excited about it. I really don't know much about what happens in this book other than the vampires and the competition element, which I knew before going into it, but that's still all I really know now that I've started it. So I'm just excited to see where it goes. I'm liking the writing so far. I like the setup of the characters, and I'm excited to get to know them more. So The Serpent and the Wings of Night is definitely the main reading plan for this week because that is on my magical readathon TBR, but who knows, I could end up picking up something else. I know there's some audiobooks that I want to try and get to this month, and just some other books in general I'd like to try and read, so we'll see. I'm not going to push it. I'm really going to focus on The Serpent and the Wings of Night because that's definitely the priority. And also this week, maybe even today, I want to set up my reading journal for this month because I still haven't done that, and I want to have a spread to keep track of my magical readathon TBR and my progress in that. So I think I might try and do that today. I also need to edit last week's vlog, and I also want to do some reading. So we'll see. It's already 11:15, so I mean, I obviously have all day, but the days go by so fast, and I'm am I gonna have time to do everything I want? No, I never do. So we'll see what ends up happening, but those are definitely the main plans for today and for this week. And now I'm gonna go so I can start editing last week's vlog because that is going to take me quite a while. Vlogs just take me a long time to edit, so gotta get prepared to do that. But welcome to a new weekly vlog and week 2 of the Magical Readathon. yes, I'm in the same clothes as yesterday. And I'm also in a very squeaky chair, so apologies about that. But yeah, you're gonna mind your business because I'm ill and it's fine. On Tuesday night, I started coming down with a cold, and yesterday was just not feeling too hot. So I'm definitely feeling better today. I'm excited about that because my throat, oh my god, it was not a good time. My throat hurt, I had a headache, and now I feel like at this point, like I just have like the congestion. So feeling better today, which is nice. But yesterday I definitely had a very chill day because I just was not feeling up to doing really anything. I basically just watched YouTube, watched some Bridgerton, did some reading, did some journaling, but honestly, like I set up my April spreads and then was like, okay, I'm exhausted now, I need to go back to bed. So my April spreads are all set up, so that's good. I can start using those throughout the month, but there are still some of my spreads from March that I need to do, so I might do that today now that I'm feeling a little bit better, a little bit more energized. But I also want to continue my rewatch of Bridgerton, so I'm thinking I might put that on, might do some journaling, but I also want to do a lot of reading today. I haven't made a ton of progress since we last updated. I did do some reading over the past couple of days, but to be honest, I just kept falling asleep when I tried to read because I wasn't feeling well, so haven't made the most progress. I'm now 26% of the way through. I'm on chapter 15, and I still am enjoying it, I think. Like I said, we have Araya who has entered this competition against a bunch of vampires, and she's a human, and during this competition, they're all like secluded and staying in this castle that is specifically used for this competition. This competition happens every few years. I don't actually remember how long it is in between. It might be like 20, might be 100, might be 50, I don't remember, but there's some time in between each of these competitions, and this castle is only used for that because this is where like the competitors stay. So Araya being a part of this competition, but also being human, and the fact that her dad, her vampire dad that took her in all those years ago, is the king of one of the houses of the vampires and of one of the, I don't even think it's the house, I think it's like the certain land. I don't know, I'm still a little confused on the world building aspects of this book, if you couldn't tell. But he is the king of some vampires, and so all of those things kind of put a big target on her back. So she's like really fearing for her life, just like in the place where the competitors are staying, never mind during the actual trials as well. But she ends up becoming kind of reluctant allies with Rain, I think is his name, who is one of the competitors in this competition. He's also from a rival enemy territory, land, something. Like the vampires that she's been raised around and his vampires, like they are constantly at war, I guess, or like they have this peace agreement for now, but there's still a lot of tension between them. And so she becomes allies with him, and clearly he is going to become the love interest, I think. So I'm very interested to see how that goes about, because right now she like doesn't want to trust him, but he's kind of the only bet that she has right now, and she knows that eventually like they're probably gonna both attempt to kill each other, but for now they're allies. So it's just very interesting. I definitely, like I said, don't fully understand the world still. I'm just not entirely sure how the houses of the vampires and then the different parts of the land, like how that's all divided and how that all works. Like all of the like political aspects of it, I don't think I get yet. And there's also just like a lot of different terms for lots of different types of vampires, and I'm like, you never explained this to me at the beginning of the book. You're just saying these things and you expect me to know. And like through context clues and like continuing to read, like I have picked up on things, but it's one of those books where it just kind of like throws you in, starts saying things, and like expects you to know, and I'm like, am I supposed to know? Is this a part of like one of her other series, and like maybe she's just hoping that like you've read it before and so you know everything? But I'm pretty sure this is like the start of a new series, so I don't know. I feel a little lost on like world building aspects or like certain terms and things like that, but I don't know. I'm still liking it, and I feel like for the most part, like as I continue to read, I've been picking up on things, so I'm sure the farther I get in, the more things will start to make even more sense. But yeah, I think I'm liking it. I definitely like the trial competition element and the fact that all of these competitors are secluded to one place, because I think that's also going to cause a lot of interesting dynamics with our main character and the other vampires, and then also like the vampire she's allied with, and I think that that's going to be interesting to see play out. We've already had one of the trials, which I found interesting, but it happened very quickly, so I'm kind of hoping that when we see the different trials in the future that they last a little bit longer and they're a little bit more interesting to read, or like take up a little bit more page time and attention. But yeah, I think I'm liking it. I still don't really have a ton of thoughts, but like I said, I've been like kind of slowly making my way through this and like reading it in short amounts every time I pick it up because I just keep falling asleep when I try to read this book. So I'm hoping today I can actually sit down and read a good amount of it. I'm still obviously not feeling 100%, so I want to have a very chill day. I think watching more Bridgerton and reading, I think, is the plan. So I'm hoping that I can make a good amount of progress in this, especially because I want to read a book a week for this readathon, and I'm not even halfway through this book, and we are about halfway through the week. So definitely got to make some more progress today, and I'm just interested to see where it goes and what I continue to think. I think I'm liking it, but again, not entirely sure. But yeah, I think I'm actually going to do some laundry, which is my only other plan for the day. And then I think I might put on some Bridgerton, maybe do some journaling, and then do some reading later on. I just want to have like a chill day, like I've said. And I also just watched the trailer for season 3 of Bridgerton. I am so excited. First of all, Nicola Coughlan, is that her name? The actress for Penelope, she looks gorgeous for this season. I mean, she's already very pretty, so like, you know, there's just that, but like some of the looks this season that she has in her hair and the dresses themselves that she's wearing, she just looks so gorgeous, and I'm so excited. It seems like the whole premise, because honestly I don't really know the premise too much of the actual books because I read The Duke and I and hated it, so I've like vowed that I'm not going to read the rest of the books despite how much I like the show. I know I'm not going to vibe with the books as much. So I didn't really know like what the plot of the book was, but it seems like in the show that Colin, like as a friend of Penelope's and as their friends, he's gonna like help her find a husband. So it's gonna be kind of similar, I guess, to season 1, but they already are friends and they like each other, and clearly she is very interested in him, and I think he's also interested in her, but he's like, you know, being a dumb boy as always. So I'm excited to see how it all plays out. I feel like there's been a lot of like mixed feelings going into this season. Like I feel like some people aren't as excited, but like I'm pumped. I'm excited about it. So yeah, that's why I've been rewatching the show, because I want to rewatch both seasons before season 3 comes out. And I also realized I still haven't watched Queen Charlotte, the like spin-off show from Bridgerton. Still haven't watched that. I don't know why. So I think I might try and watch that before Bridgerton season 3 as well. I'm just gonna be in a Bridgerton mindset for the next like month. I don't love that with season 3 though, they're splitting it into 2 parts. Like, why are we doing that? Did Stranger Things give everyone the idea that that was okay to do? I don't love it. I don't love that we're gonna have 4 episodes and then have to wait like a month for the next 4, because you know that 4th episode in season 3 of Bridgerton is gonna be such a cliffhanger and you're just gonna want to keep watching, but we're not gonna be able to. A part of me is like, do I wait to watch part 1 until part 2's out? But I'm not gonna be able to hold myself back. Like, I'm not gonna have that strength. But yeah, very excited for season 3. Hello, Sam. You've arrived. And excited to continue on with my rewatch, especially because season 1, I like it, but I don't love it. Season 2 is so superior, so I'm just excited to get to my season 2 rewatch. And then also watch Queen Charlotte for the first time, because I've heard really good things about that show. I just haven't watched it yet. Meow. Come say hello. It's like, why are you holding me like that? But okay, I'm gonna go get started on my laundry and then proceed with the very chill and relaxing day. What are we doing, Sam? Are you ready for some cuddles? Because that's what I'm ready for today. All right. We out. Oh, excuse the hair. It's been in a claw clip all day, so therefore it looks a little funny. But I'm also filming on the front camera instead of the back, which I know the back's better quality, but this is a little easier. Hello. I just wanted to give a very quick reading update because I'm now on chapter 33, which is 59% of the way through. So I did make a good amount of progress yesterday. I'm hoping to maybe do some more reading tonight. I have a feeling, as always, a nap is in my future. I need to get in the habit of like coming home from work now that the weather is nice and like going for a walk instead of just immediately beginning to rot in bed. But it's raining today, so my excuse is that I'm not gonna walk in the rain. We'll start that when the weather is actually nice, but that does mean that I think I'm gonna have a very chill evening just doing some reading. My arm is tired. My phone is not that heavy. It should not be this tired. But yeah, I feel like I was saying in my last update that I thought I was liking this book, but I really didn't say much. I really didn't know how I was feeling about it. Like, it was fine. I wasn't super invested, wasn't like super into the characters or anything. I found certain things intriguing, but I just wasn't super invested. But now that I've reached the halfway point, things have definitely taken a turn, and there's definitely some interesting elements that have been introduced. So I'm a lot more intrigued by it now. I feel like about the halfway point is when things started to take a turn for the better. So I'm definitely intrigued. I definitely understand why people say that this is for fans of Sarah J. Maas and like the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. I definitely get some similarities, but I mean, I also like the Court of Thorns and Roses series. I never said it was good, but I like it. So perhaps I will feel the same about this book. It definitely has some like, you know, cheesy, perhaps cringy moments, but like, I don't know, I'm kind of into it. Like, I'm having a good time. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm loving it, but I'm enjoying it. And I'm definitely intrigued to see where it goes, because I feel like some people talk about things that characters do at the end of this book that I feel like may determine how I feel about this book at the end. Just some things that I've heard. So I'm intrigued to see how I feel. So far, I'm definitely more into it than I was in the first half, and I'm excited to see where it goes. And I'm hoping that I can finish it this weekend. I also did finish my rewatch of season 1 of Bridgerton, so I may wait to rewatch season 2 and watch Queen Charlotte instead for the first time, and then do my rewatch of season 2, because I'm so excited to rewatch season 2, and I feel like waiting until season 3 is about to come out to rewatch it might be my best bet. But yeah, season 1, it's fine. Honestly, like, the storylines in season 1 are not necessarily my favorite, but I'm just excited to see everything continue in season 2, because season 2 is so superior. So yeah, reading and probably watching some form of Bridgerton show is on the plan for this weekend, and streaming Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter, because she came out with that new song yesterday, and it is the song of the summer. That's it. But yeah, I thought I would just quickly check in on some reading updates. I'm definitely more into it now than I was before, but I'm still not like obsessed with it. But I feel like people are obsessed with this book in this series, so I'm willing to see my opinion on that change. What are you doing? Okay. It's now officially time for me to wrap up this vlog and start next week's, and I just want to apologize. I feel like this vlog was not my best. I haven't even started to edit this vlog or anything. Like, I don't know what I have filmed. I just feel like I didn't film a lot, whether that was b-roll or like chit-chatty clips. I came down with a cold kind of at the beginning of the week, which made me not really want to be filming myself and like talking, especially when my throat was a little sore. And also just, I don't know if it was because I was sick, so I just wasn't feeling my best generally, but I just was not like feeling the whole filming thing just in general. I feel like I'm in a bit of a slump with like YouTube and filming and everything recently, which is weird because I am excited about doing these vlogs and the magical readathon, but I'm just not feeling super inspired or excited by YouTube right now, which is totally fine. Like, it happens. I feel like any hobby, you go through phases, and this has happened to me before with YouTube, so hopefully it doesn't last long. I do feel like the weather has been so nice the past few days that like I feel myself mentally just feeling so much better. So I feel like I'm already kind of getting over that. But yeah, just feeling like a bit slumpy with like YouTube generally. So I'm hoping my vlog for next week is a little bit more exciting. I am back into it and filming a little bit more. Plus, like, we do have the Torture Poets department coming out in the next few days, which will be in next week's vlog, all the discussions and reactions. So for that alone, I'm excited to vlog next week. But yeah, sorry if this was not my best vlog. I already know it's not going to be great, so apologies if it's a bit short, a bit underwhelming. I feel like if that is the case, there's probably not a whole lot of people still watching, so if you are still here watching, thank you so much. But I do have some final reading updates before we end this vlog. I did manage to finish The Serpent and the Wings of Night. I feel like I read like almost half of the book in one sitting, so I definitely feel like the second half was a lot more interesting, a lot more intriguing to me. I was a little bit more engaged with it. I felt more invested in what was going on in the second half. So I definitely preferred the second half to the first half. I think I kept saying like I thought I liked it when I first started it because I really didn't know how I felt. Like I wasn't disliking it, but I wasn't really liking it either. I just felt kind of neutral until the second half when things picked up a little bit. But I wouldn't say that I necessarily loved this book. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars, and a part of me is like, that extra half star might be a bit generous. I don't know, like I didn't dislike it. I don't really have very many thoughts. I don't feel super strongly about it. Even though I did like the second half more, I still kind of feel pretty neutral on it. There were definitely some aspects of the romance that I enjoyed and certain scenes and certain moments with them that I liked. And I also liked where the story kind of went and how things kind of concluded in this book, because this is the first book in a series. There were a lot of reveals and twists and turns in the kind of last bit of this book, and I liked them and I was invested. Even though it didn't feel like super unique or super surprising, I was still invested in what was going on and what was being revealed. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say that I loved it. It didn't feel like super unique. It didn't feel like anything that I haven't read before, which in some cases it was fine because I still was invested in certain aspects of this book. Even if I kind of knew where it was going, just because it didn't feel super unique, I was still enjoying it. But it definitely isn't the most unique story. It kind of just feels like ACOTAR in a different font. Like instead of fairies, it's vampires, but they still have wings. So there you go. And I think my biggest thing, and I think this is kind of just something that I'm realizing with fantasy romance or romantasy books, is that I found the fantasy element of this book and like the world and the history and the explanation of things lacking. I feel like we didn't get really any understanding as to why certain things were the way that they were or why certain things happened. That's just how it was. That's just how the world was. And we never really got any explanation. And I think that made it hard for me to get even more invested because a lot of the things regarding the world and the politics affected the characters, but because I didn't fully understand everything and the severity of everything, I didn't feel like I could get fully invested in the characters and what was happening to them. Because something that eventually I figured out, apparently there was a glossary or like an index at the back of this book this whole time, and I just didn't know that that was there. Would have been helpful to have seen that before I started the book, but the way that this world kind of works is that there are vampires. Yes. Vampires, they're there. And there's kind of different houses of vampires. There's the House of Night, the House of Blood, and the House of something else that I don't remember. And Aurea, the main character, has grown up in the House of Night. Vincent, who is the vampire that took her in when she was younger, he is the king of the House of Night. So there's that. I feel like I never fully understood that until I got to the end, and then I read the glossary and I was like, oh, okay, now I get it. I mean, I kind of got it throughout the book just through context clues, but like, anyway, that's kind of the setup. But then within the House of Night, there are 2 clans of vampires. This is where I got confused because there are so many divisions of the vampires within that different houses, and I just wasn't fully understanding it until like a good amount of the way through the book. But there are 2 clans within the House of Night, 2 clans of vampires, and these 2 clans do not like each other, and throughout history have always been like fighting one another for power. And then once one is in power, they fight again, and then the other comes in power. So it's kind of this constant change of who is leading the House of Night, who is the king or the rulers of it, because these 2 clans are always kind of at war with one another. But why these clans don't like each other and why they are at war with one another, couldn't tell you, don't know. Doesn't really feel like it was ever explained. And that is significant to the plot. It becomes a big thing throughout the book because a lot of the politics in this world are kind of driven by the fact that these 2 clans don't like each other, and Aurea and Rain are kind of on opposing sides of these clans. He's from the other clan that her and her father are not from, and so he's like seen as like the enemy kind of. But so it's like that plays such a big role, and I still don't understand why these clans don't like each other, why it's happening. It's just never really explained. And also there is this competition element that's happening throughout this book that Aurea is competing in, and basically like it's a competition to kind of honor the goddess, or I think she's technically a goddess, that like created the vampires, and the different trials reflect like her journey. I still don't really understand why this competition happens. Like, yeah, I know it's to honor her, but like why? Like, why are they doing this? Why does this happen every so often? Like, there were a lot of things like the why of the certain aspects of this world were not given. And so it made it hard for me to get invested, especially once you get to certain things and certain reveals at the end. It's like, I know it's bad, but I don't really know why, or I just don't fully understand the severity of why everything is so bad. So yeah, I think just like the world building aspect and like the explanation of the fantasy world in this book was just not super well done, in my opinion. And I think that's what I'm realizing with the fantasy romance genre, is that I want to read a fantasy romance where the romance is fun and I love it and I'm invested, but the fantasy aspects aren't sacrificed for the sake of the romance. And the thing is, if you write a fantasy romance book where romance is like the main focus and like takes up most of the page time, and it's just like basically set in a fantasy world, like that's fine. The fantasy aspects don't have to be super apparent, or, you know, they don't have to be super like detailed. They can be very simple. But if you're gonna set a book within a fantasy world and with a fantasy backdrop, I at least want the world to be like explained and make sense. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate. It can be simple. I just want to understand it. And I feel like this book, the fantasy world did play such a big part into the characters, and the politics within this world played such a big role into the different relationships that our main character Aurea had, not only with Rain, which I still don't know if that's how you say his name, the love interest, but also her father, Vincent, and just like her relationship with a bunch of the other vampires. Like, it played such a big role, but I don't feel like I ever fully understood what it was and like why certain things were the way that they were. So I don't know. I don't know what it is about fantasy romance. I want to keep trying it because I love fantasy books and I love romance books. So this just feels like the genre that I should love, but I don't know, something about them just, it doesn't always work. I think I just don't want the fantasy aspects to be sacrificed for the romance. I could definitely see why this type of story and this type of like author and the way that this story is set up would work for so many people. I feel like, you know, this is very much in line with like Sarah J. Maas and Jennifer L. Armentrout and like Rebecca Yarros. Like, I understand why these books are popular and why people like them and why people can just like get invested in the romance and not need the world to be super like fleshed out or anything. But I think that's just more so like personal preference. If it is in a fantasy world, I want to at least understand the world a little bit. And I just don't think that like those authors that I listed and things that kind of fall into that category of fantasy romance is necessarily what I want from the genre, but I don't know what I want from fantasy romance. So if you have any fantasy romance recommendations, I'd love to hear them. And it's not even that I disliked this book. I think I'm gonna continue on with the series. I'm intrigued to see where it goes, and hopefully things just get better and things get explained a little bit more, because I think if things get explained more, I could be really into it. But yeah, I just think that this type of fantasy romance isn't necessarily what I'm looking for within the genre. And it's not like, again, like I like the ACOTAR series. I read Fourth Wing. I have a lot of mixed feelings on it, but at the time when I read it, I had fun with it. So I don't know. I just don't know what I'm looking for within the fantasy romance genre. And this was fine. Like I said, I gave it 3.5 stars. So it wasn't like I disliked it, but I don't think that this is what I want completely from the genre. So anyway, I don't think any of that made any sense, but in conclusion, give me your fantasy romance recommendations because I want them. This did also complete a prompt for the Magical Readathon. What an idea, what a concept, that's what we're here for. So this completed the inscription class, so that's 2 classes done for the 5 classes that I have to take this month for the readathon. So I'm on track with completing my TBR and I'm excited about it. I'm excited I got another thing done and also got this whole book done in the span of a week. I thought that this was going to definitely go into the 3rd weekly vlog. Like, I wasn't sure if I was going to finish this book by the end of this vlog, but I did it. So she's a reader. But yeah, those are kind of my messy thoughts on The Serpent and the Wings of Night, my progress on the Magical Readathon, and also once again, apologies for this vlog not being the most interesting. I'm hoping next week will be a little bit better, a little bit more interesting to watch. But again, the Tortured Poets department is coming out next week. So if anything, you will be seeing my reactions and thoughts to that. And I'm very excited. Like, I don't understand how I'm supposed to function as a human being this week because all I'm thinking about is this album release. It's fine. I'll be fine. I will manage. But yeah, would love to know if you're participating in the Magical Readathon, your progress. I like to do these check-ins at the end of every vlog and just see how you all are doing with your TBRs and your prompts. And if there's anything you've read that you've really loved, I'd love to know. And also, if you're not participating in the readathon, just let me know what you've been reading this month. And also if you're looking forward to the Tortured Poets department, because I'm very excited. Actually, this vlog I think is going to go up the day the album comes out. So happy Tortured Poets department release day, everybody. But that is going to be it for this weekly vlog. So thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.